What is the difference between Mozart and Bach? These two iconic classical composers have brought pleasure to thousands of people across the globe for hundreds of years, but what distinguishes one from the other? Are they both quite similar, or are they uniquely creative individuals who have little in common at all? One clear difference between W. A. Mozart and J. S. Bach is that they lived at different periods of musical history. J. S. Bach is considered to be a composer who dominated the Baroque landscape, while W. A. Mozart is often credited with being the maestro of the classical style. What is inescapable is that both composers were at the very top of their leagues during the times in which they lived, but have equally come to have established reputations as musical geniuses following their deaths. There is certainly a connection between the two composers that cannot be overlooked. Whilst J. S. Bach would not have known W. A. Mozart, Mozart was familiar with the work and reputation of Bach. J. S. Bach died in 1750, W. A. Mozart was born in 1756. The influence of the music of J. S. Bach on Mozart is thought by many scholars to have been quite profound, with Mozart in some of his very early compositions modeling the work of J. S. Bach. Even though following J. S. Bach's death his music was somewhat neglected, Mozart studied Bach's music and is thought to have been friends with Bach's son, J. S. Bach. The fluency with which J. S. Bach was able to compose polyphonically drew Mozart to his work. Fugues, one of the most sophisticated polyphonic musical forms, is found regularly in the music of Mozart and reportedly an aspect of Mozart's compositions that his wife Constanza adored. One very fine example of Mozart's fugal writing can be heard in the final movement of his Jupiter Symphony, No. 41, which seems unlikely to have been composed in the manner in which it is without the love of J. S. Bach's works. Instead of clean, homophonic textures from Bach's time replace the polyphonic, outlined and regular phrase lengths and delineated tonal structures that verged on the predictable in the hand of lesser composers. These musical features not only outline the differences in the period of Bach and Mozart but also to a greater degree the composers themselves. W. A. Mozart was born into a much more free-thinking world than the one J. S. Bach arrived in. The impact of these circumstances weighed heavily on the output of each composer. Mozart did not throw the baby out with the bathwater. He built on the music of his predecessors and J. S. Bach was amongst them. His appreciation of Bach's catalogue of music was evident, but Mozart elected, as you would expect, to pursue this new era of music in his own way and on his own terms. Not only how J. S. Bach and W. A. Mozart approached the composition of their music was different, but the compositions they created were also quite distinct. Bach, broadly speaking, served the Church his entire life, and this gave rise to some of the most beautiful and outstanding religious works of his time. Bach composed extensively for harpsichord and organ, with an example of these compositions including his 48 preludes and fugues. J. S. Bach was by all accounts a superb master of the organ and the harpsichord. Mozart was primarily a pianist, not an organist, as well as a consummate violinist.